Hello everyone. This is week 4 of our Kendo talks, and we have a lovely lady here today, Jacqueline Yondan, who is trained in many different places. Started Kendo 2004 and is mainly trained in Hong Kong. Now she's living roundabouts Glasgow and trains at Taisadokai and is one of the coaches at Glasgow University Kendo Club. Thank you very much for coming today, and she is going to be giving a talk on what is Kiai.
Okay, right, thanks Izzy. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. First of all, I just want to just say, I just hope everybody's okay during this difficult time and everybody's healthy and, so anyway, what is in a Kiai? So sometimes this is the most difficult thing for beginners to overcome. When they come to the class and they see Kendo for the first time, the first thing that most people say is, "Oh, it's so loud, everybody's screaming." So when they then start for the first time, when you're teaching beginners, quite often the Kiai is the thing that is missing. They tend to be able to hit okay, they move okay, but the Kiai is non-existent. And this is because it's embarrassing. You're not used to making big loud noises. If you make a big loud noise, people will notice you. You don't necessarily want to be noticed. So it's quite awkward to begin with. But I believe that Kiai is fundamental to Kendo in so many ways. So why do we Kiai? So as you know, Kendo is steeped in history with the samurai, from the bogu that we wear, which is representing the armour, to the shinai, which is the sword, or the soul, sometimes people say, to the fighting spirit and the continual development and respect. But it's this fighting spirit and not giving up, which are the two main fundamental, pivotal aspects of Kendo. If any of you have had the fortunate position to fight with an 8th Dan, I was always told by my sensei in Hong Kong, who is an 8th Dan, he said, the rules, if you like, of fighting an 8th Dan is your first thing is that you do a massive Kiai, to show that you're fighting spirit, to show that you're ready, and then your first cut should be 100% everything. If you don't do that, quite often some of them will let you just hit men and then just say thanks very much, that's it. So that's what they're looking for, and that's why, quite often you maybe see somebody getting a good 2 or 3 minutes and then you get like 2 minutes and you think, oh, what happened to me? That'll be why. So when you see Kiai written in Japanese kanji, I don't have it here, but if you look it up online, it's got 2 characters. So the first one means ki or spirit, and the second one means yai, which is noise. So basically it's a spiritual noise. Now the samurai were very, well, the Japanese in general, they believe very much in noise can be a sign of spiritualism or your fighting spirit, which is why the Kiai is so important. If you are a beginner, you've probably heard quite often people saying, oh, you need to hit a nippon, showing Kiken Tai no Ichi. So what does that mean? So it refers to the mind, body and sword being as one. And you've got to demonstrate all of these aspects. If one of these aspects is missing, then it's not a proper nippon. So one of these things is the body and the mind, and that can be shown through your Kiai. So the Kiai is the kind of fundamental essence of spirit. So to perform a Kiai properly actually takes years and years of practice. When I was living in Hong Kong, as he said, I lived in Hong Kong for a good 12, 13 years. We had Sumi Sensei that came once a year to give us a really good seminar. And during one of the recent seminars, just before I moved back, he was talking about Kiai, and he also said it's pivotal to our Kendo. he was talking about Kiai not coming from here, but coming from your feet and your soul almost. And he said, what we need to do is we need to breathe in and bring the breath all the way down to our dantian, which is round about where our tummy button is, and try and hold it there. And if done properly, when you Kiai out, it should come from this area in your abdomen, and your tari should move when you do your Kiai. So he turned his back on us and said, I'm going to do my Kiai now. And you didn't see his shoulders or his back moving once. So you didn't know actually when he was about to Kiai. And this is really difficult to perform because when you're doing Kendo, you've got somebody in front of you, you're thinking about what they're doing, you're trying to move properly, how am I holding my shinai, I need to take a breath, blah, 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 blah. And it all just goes out the window. So this is why it takes a lot of practice to try and, get your breathing sorted and your movement at the same time. I also feel that our Kiai can change as we develop through our Kendo journey. Some of you who know me will be very surprised to hear that when I first started Kendo, you couldn't hear my Kiai. It was like I was like a wee mouse. Until one day when I was fighting with Sensei and he managed to get me to do my Kiai and he said, that's what I'm looking for. So, it's hard to try and get your Kiai to grow when you're beginning. So as he said, I trained with an 8-dan sensei in Hong Kong, and his way of teaching was probably very different to what a few of you have been learning so far. He was very much on the spiritual side of Kendo. So he thought Kiai was pivotal and part of the training, and if you weren't shouting enough, he would shout back at you and say, where's your Kiai? To make us feel full of energy, he would make us do what's called a Kiai Keiko at the beginning and at the end of each practice. Now, looking at Izzy's reaction, she knows what a Kiai Keiko is, but for people who don't know, a Kiai Keiko is basically where you all form a circle or get together and you take a very deep breath and push the breath right down to your dantian, your tummy button. You lean back and you look at the ceiling and you just from the lowest part of your abdomen, you breathe out and you shout out your Kiai, and as loud and as long as you can. Now, this is not a competition to see who has the loudest and longest Kiai. It's to get everyone in the whole room to feel energized. And I used to find that if we didn't do the Kiai Keiko at the beginning of each practice, I felt that when we started our warm-up, it was just each ni san shi. Whereas if we did the Kiai Keiko, everybody felt connected, if you like. We're all in this together, we're all working hard. And I know that sounds a bit of a cliche, but it does make you feel different. And quite often, after a really good session, he would make us do Kiai Keiko afterwards. And again, you'd think, well, if it's to make us feel full of energy, why would he make us do it afterwards? And it was because he was using it in a different way, and you would feel the release of all this energy. And afterwards, although you felt really tired, you also felt calm and energized at the same time. So this leads me to another aspect of Kiai, is when to use it and what it can do. So it's not just standing there and going, yeah, and then hitting men and shouting kote and do. It's a lot deeper than that. I have found through my Kendo training that in certain circumstances, using my Kiai can make me feel different ways. So during gradings or competitions, like everyone, I get very nervous and very uptight. And I used to find, or I do find, that if I do a huge big Kiai coming right from my feet, it actually makes me feel very calm. And it gets your energy collected into your body and it makes you more focused. And And the timing of when you use your Kiai is also very important. When you watch beginners, and I'm not kind of talking about beginners in a negative way. It's just we're all like this at the beginning because we're told to do your Kiai, hit. So they think they have to do it all the time. So a lot of people, when they come up from Songkyo, especially when they're beginners, they come up from Songkyo and they do their Kiai straight away and then they hit. But this can actually look and feel quite nervous. So again, the timing of when you do your Kiai. So quite often, if you're fighting somebody quite senior, they'll come up from Songkyo and they'll just stand. When you're shouting your lungs out, giving your biggest Kiai, and they're just standing there, and you think, oh my God, they're so scary. So what this person is doing is they're not just waiting and they're not just standing there, they're using a couple of techniques. So semi, some people going into third dan, fourth dan, semi is very important. And this can be done spiritually as well. So you intend that your energy is like my sensei used to say in Hong Kong, like a wave, you're coming over on top of the person, you know, drowning out all their energy, and then you Kiai. So this is how you can use your Kiai in that way. My son David, I don't know if some of you may know David, he's second Dan. He used to say that standing against our eighth Dan doing a keiko, he said, Sensei would just stand up from Songkyo, would stand there and you'd actually feel the wave coming on top of you and you'd think, oh my God, I'm just about to fight an eighth Dan. You know, but this was him using his semi, using his presence, and then he would Kiai. So, you know, this is one way that you can use your Kiai. The other way that you can use your Kiai is, again, demonstrating that you're in charge of a fight. So it's, you see two Kendoka together, and one will Kiai, another one will Kiai straight away back. This just looks as if you're responding. So if you can wait for a couple of seconds and then Kiai, it shows, or it demonstrates to people watching, okay, they're not nervous. They don't care that this person's done his biggest Kiai. He's taking his time or she's taking his time, and now it's her turn. Okay, so there's different ways that you can use your Kiai. What else? If you're able to do your Kiai like this, like what Sumi Sensei, the way I was telling you about with the air coming into your dantian and not moving your shoulders up and down, there's reasons for doing this. Most people, when they breathe to do their Kiai, they breathe like this, especially beginners and people who are trying. Yeah. So as soon as you breathe like this, somebody who's very experienced and watching you very carefully, which is what you should do in Kendo, will realise, right, they're breathing in, they can't move, I'm going to hit them. So that's one reason why you should try and do your Kiai from your abdomen so that your shoulders don't move, your chest doesn't move. They don't know when you're about to do your Kiai when you're ready to move. The other reason, and most important reason of putting the energy and your breath down into your dantian, is it automatically brings your thoughts down to your lower half of your body. So it brings your energy into your legs and your feet, so you feel more grounded, and then your arms are not tight, they're nice and relaxed. My sensei in Hong Kong used to say to me, I was always bringing my shoulders up because I was always feeling excited, tense, and he would say, shoulders, shoulders, too tight, too tight. I'm still too tight at times. But if I do my Kiai and focus my breath down in my abdomen, my legs feel more powerful and I feel as if I have more control and my arms are nice and relaxed. The other thing, the last thing that trying to do your Kiai this way from your dantian is it helps with your breathing. So when you're doing Kendo, although you're running around and you're hitting and it's very active, you should try not to breathe so quickly. Breathing deeply like this will help you to control your breathing, especially when you're doing things like Kikai Keiko or Kirikaish. So it's not just breathing deeply for the sake of it. There's actually quite a few meanings as to reasons as to why you breathe deeply like that. So in essence, I feel that Kiai is more than just shouting. It can be a feeling, it can be a means of controlling your mood and your breathing, and it can also be a weapon as well. My sensei in Hong Kong also told me there is no Kiai that is ever too loud. That's another thing to remember. He also used to say to me, a good sensei will know when your Kiai is just a shout or whether it's a shout from your soul. Because at the end of the day, that's what it has to be. You know, you're trying to emulate cutting somebody. You can't cut somebody by just going, la, la. You've got to really, it comes out of your soul and you're giving 100%. So that's what's in a Kiai, I feel. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving that lovely talk. So now we're going to have a little Q&A. So please ask as many questions as you can. There's a small delay between how they're viewing because upload download speeds. So I think if it's okay, I can start off.
Yeah.
So
I'll try and answer.
Oh, this is all about your own experience, so I'm sure you'll be able to answer. And you're also very what's the word? You know a lot about a lot of things and a lot about a lot of kendo. You're very knowledgeable.
I'm still learning. Everybody's still learning.
Oh yeah. That's what 8th dans say as well, though. Everyone's always still learning. You never. If you think you don't need to learn anything else, you're wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe not on the topic of Kiai, but how has your kendo progressed as you have gone from being a normal student to being a teacher and a coach?
I would say it's changed in many ways. So when I first started kendo, I was in a really bad place. I had moved to Hong Kong. I was very homesick. My twin boys were very young. My husband worked a lot and was away a lot. I felt very alone in this foreign country where no one spoke any English. I've always been very, very sporty, and I wanted to do something sporty, but not just running, which I'd ran all my life. And I found Kendo through a friend. And when I first started Kendo, to me, it was just exercise. You know, it was just running around, shouting, but the way that Kishikawa Sensei in Hong Kong teaches it, as I said earlier on in my talk, he doesn't talk about hitting people. He concentrates more on your personal development, bringing up your confidence. So I developed a lot more spirituality towards Kendo, probably more so because of him. So then it became more like a way of life for me. And that was when I really felt as if it changed. As I've progressed, I feel that I love teaching people because I love teaching them the way I see Kendo. And I know that's not for everybody. You know, it's Sensei once said to me, if you ask 5 Dan senseis a question, you'll get 5 different answers. So everyone's got, and none of them are wrong. So everyone's got their own views, and depending on your nature, depending on your thought processes, and you'll see a style of teaching that you'll really click with. So that's why I teach the way I do. You know, and those who have been in classes with me will know that I am very big on Kiai, very big on doing everything properly, and that's just the way I am. So as I've progressed, I feel as if my kendo has become deeper and more spiritual rather than physical. I'm not very strong. I'm not physically. I'm older. I am physically. I'm a lot older. I mean, I turned 50 this year, so I'm not a spring chicken. But because Kendo still gives me so much more than something physical, that's the way I feel as if I've developed more, especially going from third to fourth Dan. Fourth Dan took me 3 years and 6 goes, and that has taught me so much. So, sorry, probably a long answer.
No, that's perfect. I really want people to hear other people's experiences and go, because like you may think like no, not you may think, you know that this is only your experience, but other people have probably gone through very similar experiences, and especially some beginners starting off might think a similar way. So I want to get more broader opinions out there so everyone can actually learn.
I mean, one thing I would say, just while everyone's listening, everyone is still listening there.
Yes, of course.
One thing I would say is, especially to beginners, when you see Kendo for the first time, or when you see your coaches like Izzy and the senior people, you always look at these people, as I did when I was junior, and I think, I will never be like that. How can they do that? They make it look so easy. They're so graceful. Wow, they're so good. I can never be like that. But don't ever think that, because the one thing to remember is we were all beginners to begin with. And not a lot, but some people forget that as they become senior. And I'm very big on, if you, as my sensei taught me in Hong Kong, if you complete something, if you win a competition, if you finish a Dan exam, if you pass, go back to basics. He passed his Hachi Dan, and straight away he decided to start working from the basics again on himself. So beginners, don't be put off by the so-called, oh, they look fantastic, I can never be like that. You will. It just takes time.
Thank you. That's so lovely, and I think that's what a lot of people need to hear. But also, if you ever meet me in person, you will know I am the least graceful person ever. We've got loads. We've got quite a few questions coming in, which is fabulous, and we want more questions. What is your take on extended Kiai after a cut? Such as, is there like too much? So like, meh.
Yeah. So yes, I would say you can have too much, as in length. You can't ever have too much in being loud. But if you think about cutting a piece of wood, for instance, with an axe, just to look at the example, you would cut the piece of wood and go, as you cut it. You wouldn't cut it and then keep going, afterwards. So it's the same idea, I feel, but you still have to demonstrate your fighting spirit. You still have to demonstrate, okay, I cut this person. So you've got to kind of find a halfway. My sensei always used to say in Hong Kong, I know I keep going back to him, but I've learned so much with him. He always used to say to us, try and keep your Kiai going until you turn around and face the person again. But that doesn't mean you hit them and then run to the other side of the room, turn around. So you don't make the Kiai last about 100 minutes. You hit them, take a few steps forward and turn around, but still keep that Kiai going. Try and keep it going as much and as loud as you can, because if you drop it, it looks as if you've just gone, okay, I've killed you. Okay, so I would say there's a halfway house, but yes, there can be something that's too long.
And I'm just going to add on a bit of an extra question. Can you what is your ideal breathing for kirikaishi?
Okay, so we were taught that you should have as minimal breaths as possible. So each set, you should breathe once. So you hit men, you breathe in, and then you try and do the kirikaishi. Hit men, breathe, kirikaishi. You don't try and breathe in between hitting, like men, because, and it's very difficult to do. I mean, when we started doing it in Hong Kong, our sensei would say to us, only cut as many kirikaish cuts as you can with one breath. So some people would only be able to cut two. Some would be able to keep going to the other side of the room. And what he was trying to make us do was to control our breathing. And I think that's the key. You have to actually physically control it rather than just going and letting your breath run away with you. It's all about controlling yourself physically, and that's difficult. So.
Okay, so back on to another one from Kendo Dan. You know Dan.
Dan?
Shiroka.
All right. Oh yes. new daddy.
Yeah. Oh, cutest baby in the world. Any tips for nervous beginners who are not comfortable with Kiai?
I think what our sensei used to do was he would get all the beginners amongst everybody fighting, not keep them separate. So they would maybe, when you're doing your Kagari Keiko, or when you're doing different things, get the beginners involved so that everybody's doing Kiai, they're doing Kiai, and it's not as if they're the only ones that are doing it and everyone's standing watching them. That can be very, very intimidating if you're a nervous or a shy person. When I first started Kendo, I was and still am quite shy, and I found it so difficult. I know a lot of people probably won't believe this, but I found it so difficult to make myself heard because I just didn't want anyone to hear me. I just wanted to disappear into the wall. So I think the important thing is to get them involved in everything as much as you can, so then they don't feel as if they're the one sticking out when you're all talking quietly and all you hear is them shouting, doing their kiai. So that's what I would say. If you find beginners that are very nervous, I think that's what you would do. And also I think just if they're kiai, if they say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do anything louder than that, just say that's fine. It's a good start. I've seen beginners doing kiai and it's like a wee mouse, and then a few months later it's really, really big. And this is what I'm saying, your kiai actually develops. So I think that's the other thing. Don't belittle them. Just say that's okay. It's better than yesterday or better than last week. Keep going. So
that's great. Thank you. I've also had to deal with that with like teaching people in my club, especially. It's harder when you've got a small group, like because if you basically throw them into a beginner ish into a seminar full of like hundreds of people all doing it properly, they'll be like, oh yeah, this is fine. But if they're in a little dojo and there's like 5 people and some of them are kind of half doing it properly and they're like, oh well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, you can't see me or hear me.
The other thing is to make it fun. Kendo's hard and Kendo's serious, but you get to a certain point, probably from third, fourth dan upwards, it is very serious, but from sort of juniors, beginners, first dan, you can kind of make it fun for them, especially if they're young. So what I did in Glasgow Uni a couple of times was I used to get all the beginners together and then say to them, right, you hear them kiai, see if you can make it all louder than them. And they would make competition. And it means then they're all doing it together. And some of the beginners kiais were louder than the regular Kendo people. So yeah. There's many ways around it.
I love doing that. The one that I sometimes catch them out on is I'll say, okay, all of you combined have to be louder than me. And I'm kind of ashamed that sometimes they're not, and I'm like, oh, come on. There's like 5 of you. Yeah. So, Peter, he's from Edinburgh. I'm not sure if you know him. No, actually.
I might know him to see him, but...
No, because he master student, and I was like, oh, if you went to and then, no. Sadly. But I'm sure you'll meet him one day. He was saying, thank you for the talk, it's great. What's the best way to prevent your voice from becoming strained in a long Shiai and Keiko? If it's getting strained.
Okay. Right, so Peter, is it Peter, yeah?
Yeah, Peter.
So if you remember during my talk, Peter, I was talking about trying to breathe in and doing your Kiai from your dantian, so beside your tummy button. So if you're finding that your voice is straining, it's probably because your Kiai is coming too much from here. You know, a lot of people, when they do Kiai, they think it's coming from the throat, but it's not. It's coming from deep, deep down inside you. So if you can breathe deeply and push it out from your tummy when you shout out, then it's coming from deep down inside and not from up here. So your voice will not strain. You know, your Kiai may change slightly in the pitch. If you do that, it becomes a lot deeper. So, but yeah, it's really just trying to find out how it best works for you. But that's my advice, is to try that. Yeah.
So when you began, did you have any of these voice straining issues?
Yes. So when I first started, well, to begin with, I didn't have any voice. It was like, and then when I started doing Kiai, it was all from here. So I would go home and speak like this to my husband. Kendo's been great today. And he kind of looked at me and said, "What's wrong with your voice?" And my voice was so hoarse. So I said to Kishikawa Sensei one day, I said, I can't do Kiai today. My throat's so sore because I did the Kiai so hard 2 days ago. And he told me about starting it from your dantian. And that way then, you know, you won't get painful throats. But yes, I've had issues like that before. Also, boys, teenage boys, it can be an embarrassing issue when their voice breaks. David had that when he was in Hong Kong, and his Kiai would go from, you know, and it can be embarrassing, you know. So that's the other thing why teenage boys sometimes suddenly go from doing Kiai to just not doing anything.
Yeah. That's a difficult time for like everyone.
Everyone, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My like, do you think do you know any breathing exercises that you can advise people? Because like it's always painful when I see somebody doing that, and I'm like, no, you're using your throat, and they're like, no, I'm using my diaphragm. And it's like, I can hear it's your throat.
Mm-hmm. I think one really good exercise that I use is when sorry
Oh, no worries.
is when you are breathing normally, just sit in a chair, and when you breathe in, don't breathe in just to here. Breathe in and try and push out your tummy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that way, then you can learn how to breathe properly from your dantian. It isn't easy. It's really difficult to learn. But if you can breathe that way, so when you breathe out, sorry, when you breathe in, you pull your dantian in, your tummy in. And when you breathe out, you breathe out, pushing your tummy out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of exercise I do. And even if you just sit and do that breathing normally to begin with, and then try and do that when you're doing a slow main cut, just when you're doing suburi, just breathe in and out that way as you're cutting. You don't need to do a Kiai at this point, but just try and breathe that way, and it'll soon become, you'll soon be breathing differently that way.
That's great. So continuing on the theme of breathing. Yeah.
So
Don't worry. Well, this is fine. I'll just make random words whilst this goes on in the background. It's fine. Okay, that's cool.
that's a machine now.
Yay. So, can you just talk about how you use your tare, what in improving your breathing in Kendo?
So if you're standing, if you can stand in front of a mirror and then stand sideways so you can see yourself from the side. When you've got your tari on, so the front of your tari that's got your ziken, when you breathe out to do your kiai, if you're pushing your tummy out enough, then the tari bit that's holding you as a ken should go like this. Sorry, that's my son. I just so that is probably one of the best ways of practicing with your tari on to show that you're pushing your abdomen out enough when you're breathing. And to begin with, it probably won't move much. Sorry, I'm going to have to get that. I'm really sorry.
It's fine. I'll just try and entertain people. So one thing that I have always found really handy for learning how to breathe in Kendo is actually singing. I know people might think it's a bit weird, but really, when you're singing, you're using your diaphragm correctly.
Right, back.
Yeah, when you're singing, you're using your diaphragm correctly, and if you are trained in any way of singing, or you do learn how to sing, you will learn how to Kiai properly later on when you continue down, and then you learn how to project your voice correctly, and how to actually use everything without damaging it. And this is why it hurts me so much when I see people using their throats. I'm just like, how? It feels like you're gargling gravel. How can you even do this?
Yeah. So I mean, if you sit and when you breathe in, you push your tummy out. Sorry, I got it mixed up. So if you breathe in and push your tummy out, and then when you breathe out, you push it out from your tummy. And try to breathe so that your shoulders are not moving. Then automatically your body will find another way of breathing in and start using your abdomen, and that's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. Wait a second.
But the other thing to say is remember that the Kiai it's not just about the noise. You know, it's also to show your spirit, your fighting spirit, everything. And that's why if you can get it from your Dantian, then it feels so much more than just
So we have more questions coming in, which is brilliant. So another one from Peter is, as a beginner, he's noticed Kendoka tend to use generic Kiai instead of shouting names of the targets when making the cut. Is this valid, or should you always articulate the target you're cutting?
So what's he asking again? He's asking why we shout men, kote, etc. Or
I think he's more going, okay, I've seen some people going, man. Do they need to say men? Or do they need to say, do they need to correctly articulate the word? And I think this is kind of an issue of you're not Japanese, so you might be hearing ma and all these weird things, and you're like, oh, that's not men. But that's because that's to your ears. But if it was to people who spoke Japanese, they'd be like, oh no, that is men.
Yeah.
And you can't really. It's not.
Okay, understand. So, I mean, before competitions and everything started with Kendo, people just used to use Kiai, like what we were talking about. So I think now when we use the Kiai, you can use it in different ways. Just normal Kiai, when you're shouting out before a competition or before a hit, or just during keiko when you feel you want to just say, okay, I'm here, that comes out as just your own. Some people say, yeah, some people say, oh. But when you are in a competition or a Dan exam, when you're hitting the target, you do have to articulate men properly and kote and do. But you also have to articulate it in such a way that the way you're hitting. So, for example, if you want to hit the kote, it's not a big movement where it's like a snake, it's short, sharp. So your kiai has to emulate that. And it's the same with men. So as Izzy said earlier on, do you have to hit and then go through and keep shouting? Partly yes, because when you hit men, you're emulating cutting the person's head, and you can't do that just with a quick wah. So you have to really shout men, but in such a way that, okay, I'm cutting this person in half, basically. And the daw is the same. Daw is a very energetic hit. It's got to have a big, loud, long kiai. So it is very important. But what you mustn't forget, yes, it's important to emulate them properly, but you also have to remember and keep in mind the essence behind why you're kiaing, I feel. So, because then there's more spirit in the cut. You actually see somebody going 100% and hitting something, and you think, wow, so that's, yeah.
I
Hope that
love
answers this
that.
question.
Yeah, I hope it does. Please, if you have asked the question, can you type in the comments if that is a sufficient enough answer or if you would like further elaboration. But yeah, have you got any more analogies for Kiai? Because I absolutely love the snake kote. Because I've been told that when you're a men should be like a firework. So it's like a small lead up, then a big explosion, and then slowly.
Yeah, yeah, that's mostly kind of what we were told in Hong Kong. The kote Kishikawa Sensei used to say was like a snake. Your shinai, the tip of your shinai is like the head of the snake looking, and then like quickly, and your kiai should emulate that as well, and your body movement as well. When you hit kote, you shouldn't always just run through because you want to move away quickly. But daw and men, you want to move away. If you were being quite graphic about it, it's because of all the blood.
That's true.
That's the essence behind it. There's always a reason for you doing something in Kendo. Always. The reason may come from a way, way, way back. So, and that's why I like Kendo so much. There's always a reason for something. You don't just do it because.
That's also why beginners should never be afraid to ask questions.
Yes,
even if it sounds
stop
stupid.
asking questions. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, why do we do this one specific thing? Oh, it's because this thing.
Yeah.
And look at
It's
all
like,
of this really
it's like, why do we Songkyo? People don't know. A lot of people have said to me, beginners. I mean, I started running beginner classes for our dojo, but I had to stop them obviously because of the virus. And there was questions like, why are you doing Songkyo? What's the point in that? Kishikawa Sensei in Hong Kong said the essence behind it comes from a way back during the samurai, because they would live and die by the sword. So this was seen as their soul, but they also believed in fair fighting. So the Songkyo really was, when you go down, it's to show there's nothing behind you. It's just me, my sword, and you. That's where Songkyo comes from. I didn't know that until he told me, and I thought, well, that's really quite, So he always used to say to me, your Songkyo has to be perfect and beautiful, because you're showing respect to the person that you're about to kill.
That's great. That's great. So everyone type in the comments if you did actually know that or not, and I'm genuinely curious, please. Who did know that? Who didn't know that? So we have one more question from Baz. In Hong Kong, did Kishikawa Sensei suggest any exercises for beginners to help them control their kiai?
Okay. Yes. Okay, I understand that question.
We've talked about breathing, but controlling maybe the sound.
Yeah. So what Kishikawa Sensei used to say to us, Baz, was he would say, try not to let your breathing run away with you. So one of the exercises he would do is he would have you doing really tough keiko. Kishikawa's renowned for giving you a hard keiko, so he would get you up and fight with you for 3 minutes. Then he'd ask you to do Kikari keiko, then uchikomi, and then kirikaishi at the end. And he always used to say to us, I know you're tired, stop panting. Try and breathe properly, breathe, and it is very, very hard to try and do, but this is what he used to do with us. And when we stopped our keiko, he didn't want us to hear behind our men. He wanted us to just try and breathe deeply, but deeply from or Dantian. This was the only way that I found, and a lot of other people in the dojo in Hong Kong found that they were able to control their breathing, is to try and really focus and try and breathe from the abdomen. I hope that answers his question.
I hope it does. And if he wants any further stuff for beginners or any other beginners, please watch the full thing because there's so much information about how to breathe properly and how to really effectively use it. So, yes, he was saying excellent. Also, I haven't got everyone's reply of did you know about that in Songkyo or not? There are at least a couple people watching. Come on, I see you guys. Um, so one more question before we kind of wrap this up because I don't see any more questions. How do you think going back to the dojo and not being able to vocalize Kiai will change Kendo?
I think it's very difficult. I find that unless I'm actually just practicing suburi quietly myself, say in the house, when you don't have to do Kiai, it's just you're focusing on the swing and focusing on your body movement, which is also important in Kendo. But if you're actually fighting and you want to demonstrate that full 100% commitment to the cut, not doing Kiai, I think, would take some of that away. I think it's an aspect that has to be there, yeah, to get a nip on. So I think yes, it will be very different, very difficult. I mean, I cannot do anything now without doing Kiai. David and I were out in the garden a few weeks ago practicing, and I hit his mane and I shouted, "Man!" And he's like, "Shit, everybody can hear you." I can't, and my Kiai, as people know, if people know me, is pretty loud. So, I find it very difficult, and I think people will find it difficult. But with everything, we kind of have to try and adapt. It won't last forever, but at the moment, I think it's hard. Yeah, I think it will be difficult.
But I think that's all the questions that we have. Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add on to this before we close off? Because we these usually last an hour.
All right,
up
okay.
about 10 minutes early is completely fine though. Don't worry.
I think the one thing that I always say to the beginners, I've had people, when I started the beginner classes, some people would contact me and say, "Oh, I'm too old. Can I start?" Don't think you're ever too old for Kendo because there's so much for everybody. I mean, I can't move the way I did when I first started. I mean, I started late. 2004, I was 34, 35. So, I mean, that's quite late for starting. And I was fighting people 20 years my junior, and young guys, and they're jumping around like, and I hurt my ankle, my left ankle, a number of years ago, and I can't jump the distance that I used to. I can't move as fast as I used to, but I still get a lot out of Kendo. And when I'm fighting people, I don't feel disadvantaged by it. It's because I learn to adapt. And that's what I'm trying to say is people who want to start, but they feel, oh, I can't move like that, or I suffer from this, or I've got asthma, or I'm too old. Don't. There's something for everything in Kendo, something for everyone in Kendo. I think that's so.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything. I'm sure everyone really will appreciate everything that has been said, and hopefully people, especially beginners, will glean more insight into their breathing. And I know this sounds silly, but people will learn how to breathe.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And I really hope, and I know that a lot of people appreciate this, and thank you so much for coming today.
You're very welcome. I think it's a great thing that you're doing so people can listen in and ask questions. And, I'm very happy to do this again. If people have a specific topic that they want to hear and learn about and ask questions about, then that's fine.
If anyone does have any specific topics, either message the Facebook page or talk on the Discord. it's always here. The Discord is always there to chat with any of the people, any of the Kendoka across the UK. It's kind of made so that like university students can talk to each other because we're not going to have any taikais in the near future, but we still need to keep this community alive.
Yeah.
The best thing about going to the seminars and taikais is meeting the rest of the kendo community.
I know,
Getting to know
absolutely.
people.
It's a big thing that I'm missing as well. I know there are some people still practicing, but you know, I've got to be very careful because David's got asthma, you know, and they're going back and forward into Edinburgh as well, you know, for uni once a week, and it's one of the areas that's high risk, and I don't want to pass anything on to anybody else either. So it's just you've just got to make your own, you know, your own decisions with what you feel comfortable with. But yeah, stick with it, everyone. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming today. It was lovely listening to your questions as well. And I hope you do join us next week as well for our next Kendo Talk. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.